would like to welcome Mr. Neingulo Krome, who has wide experience working on the ground and on the field with human rights, to come here and speak to us a little bit about his thoughts.
Thank you, Aheli. Thank you, Madam Ibu, for that overview and the dreams that you have shared. And it also has made my job much easier, that I don't have to repeat what you have said. You have given a clear overview of our Naga society, and I want to take on what human rights is about in the Naga society and my own experience in that. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Morung Express and the organizers of this event for connecting some past memories and nostalgia. And when they asked me if I know Madam Hibo, I said, I've heard of her, but I've never seen her or met her. But it just happened that I've spent a good years of my young days, baby days, let us say, with her brother, and I've spent lots of years after school, during holidays in her house, and she has seen me how naughty I was those days. Hearing from her, I don't have to explain again why human rights movement also has to happen in Naga society. So it is from 1978 onward that the Naga People's Movement for Human Rights was formed to address issues of human rights where the Naga rights were violated. So after it was formed, basically the human rights movement in the Naga society was to fight the Indian military in the Naga areas and to take case to the Supreme Court of India. That was one of the first move besides the human rights rallies and processions, demonstrations that were done mostly in Kohima. Our first convener of Naga People's Movement for Human Rights, Dr. Morung, is also sitting amongst us. It's an honor to see him here. And I want to say that after that, whatever we have been going through, there was so much violence on the Naga people for so many years, and going to Supreme Court was just one of them. Another was going to the Guwahati High Court on the Oinam issue, and things like that. The fighting against government and the Indian military were some of the activities for many years, ever since NPMHR as a human rights organism in Naga society was formed. But I will not dwell on those aspects, but I want to come a little further from there, especially after the ceasefire in 1997. Our Madam also has mentioned about Shillong Accord, how it was signed or how it happened. The circumstances at that time, for those of us or those of you who have seen it better, will know why it was signed and how it was compelled to be signed. But I will not go into those details. But seeing, experiencing all those, especially after the NSCM split again in 1988, the violence was not with the Indian military or the Indian paramilitary forces here in Nagaland and wherever Naga areas are. The fighting was more within the Naga families. And it was an everyday affair. NPMHR as a human rights group was almost issuing condemnation letter almost every week when there was daily newspaper. After the coming of Nagaland Post in 1990, we were almost issuing every day. So it became sort of a mockery, even for human rights organizations to be condemning every day. So there was a time when we had to collect violations of human rights or killing among Nagas for 1 week. And after 1 week, we will compile how many killings took place and condemn. Condemn. That was the kind of human rights situation in Nagaland. I've seen young children shot on the road and their brains splattered on the windshields of the cars, covered, seeing dead bodies everywhere. Even people like additional SP of Kohima, Mr. Rawat, was shot just in front of the NSF office while there was a football match going on in a crowded place. I mean, that kind of things, the situation was beyond any human rights organization also to control or even to address or even to talk about them. And it became even more dangerous even to talk about them. Nagaland ministers with flag were shot by Assam Rifles. Madam Banon Alam Jamer was made to line up on the highway when they were coming from Mokokchung. Things like that was beyond compare or control. So when ceasefire came in 1997, we thought we must make the most of it. So without any invitation, without any ownership, we said this ceasefire must work. So when ceasefire came, even when ceasefire came, the ceasefire was announced on 25th July 1997 to come operative on 1st of August. This was signed, when this was signed, the Nagaland newspaper were asked to publish this news of ceasefire, and NSCN activists went with the press release from newspaper offices to offices. Those days, the newspapers offices were in Kohima, most of them. Only Nagaland Post and a couple of them were here in Dimapur. Around 9, 10 o'clock, the NSCN man took these press releases to the newspaper houses in Kohima. One of the newspaper editors woke me up at 12 midnight, called me by the phone and asked me whether this is true, that a ceasefire has taken place between NSCN, IM, and government of India. I said, that must be true. If this is not true, how can a person say that two governments have signed a ceasefire? But if I publish this, the other faction may come and kill me. That was what the editor responded. But I said, it must be true, go on. But all newspapers were closed the next day till 12 noon. And only after 12 noon, the newspaper published this matter. That was the situation. So even when ceasefire was declared, that was the fear of the people. But after it was announced for 3 months, people started engaging. And as a response to the human rights situation in the northeast of India, the government of India, through the research for policy, research center in Delhi, which was run by Sanjay Hazarka, and J.K. Pillai was the Joint Secretary in charge of Northeast. They organized a seminar on the 30th of October, because 31st will be the last day of the ceasefire, in JNU, and said that after 1 month we will go to Assam, we'll go to Manipur, and things like that. So in that seminar, when I said we can't afford the ceasefire to break, because even after 3 months of ceasefire, more than 300 Nagas are killed between factions, and whatnot. And if this ceasefires are broken, that how many people, how many thousands, how many hundreds more were killed? Then J.K. Pillai stood up and said, why should we care for if 300 people are getting killed in Nagaland, when 2,000 people are getting killed in Delhi alone on vehicle accidents? Why should we care, he said. So I stood up and said, then come and fight like a man. Stop hiding under the skirts of women and children and go to the jungles where Naga army are. And if you can kill the Naga army, I will applaud you. But if your Indian soldiers will get killed, don't complain. And in that situation, the ceasefire was extended for another 1 year. So we thought we also must make the best of it. So in July of 1998, when again the first ceasefire was about to be expired on 31st of July in 1998, I was in Geneva to attend the UN Working Group, and July 31st is the last day of the UN Working Group meeting. But the UN also was generous enough to allot us a slot in the UN program, where we were given a room during lunch break to address the issue of the Naga situation. So the chairperson of the UN Working Group announced that if anybody wants to know about Nagaland, you can go to room such and such, and lunch will be served. So we said, how do we frame the meeting? So we called that meeting 365 days of ceasefire in Nagaland. And in that situation, more than 20 countries came, and I told the UNPO Secretary General Helen Corbett was chairing, and I was the resource person. And I said, I've come to the UN and I have heard you talk about education, health, environment, whatnot. In Nagaland, we have no time to talk about our health. We have no time to talk about education or environment or whatever. We are just worried whether we'll get up the next day alive. That is the situation, human rights situation in Nagaland. So that was how we carried forward the activities of human rights in Naga society under post-ceasefire. But we know that NSC and IM alone cannot take the whole issue. And the Naga society is not just one political group. So we felt the urgency of making the leaders come together. If they can unite, good. Even if they cannot unite, they must meet. So in 1998, after in the early days of ceasefire, when we were also able to meet the Asaga Mueva in Bangkok along with other Naga political civil society organizations, we also went to Burma by foot, by walking from Mo, and met Kaplan. In 1999, we also went to London and met Adino, and we urge on behalf of the younger generation that whatever it is, NSC and IM alone cannot go and bring some kind of solution. You must make your own contribution, and so please, for the sake of future generation, you people must meet or unite, whatever. I mean, that was the message where we also tried to take to the leaders at that time. Because there were the three key leaders and there were no other factions at that time. Then we also felt the importance of people to support the issue. So the people-to-people dialogue was carried out through a journey of conscience to India. After 55 years, the Naga 66, the Naga civil society organizations and members and church leaders went to Delhi and then engaged with the Indian people in Delhi for 3 days. Likewise, coming back home, we also went and spent 3 days with Arunachal Nagas. About 115 Naga village chiefs came in Itanagar because there was no road to Chamlang and Tirap. And the chief minister, Gyagan Apong of Arunachal at that time also even came and came and attended the meeting, gave his blessing, and he sat with us till 12 o'clock in the morning for about 2 hours. And then those are a few things that we engaged with among the people. And although the North India and Central India knows about Nagas, the Naga issue was left untouched in South India. So some of us again went to South India and visited a few cities and engaged with the people's movement there and talk about our issues. And since most of the negotiations were also taking place in Bangkok between Government of India and NSCN, we also went to Bangkok and conduct under the banner caption of Naga's folk calls for peace. We went and performed our songs and our stories through skits and dances. And back home, because of the division that has taken place among the Eastern Nagas and the rest of the Nagaland here, some of us also again unofficially engaged with our Eastern Naga friends. I don't know if anybody is here who participated in those discussions, but not to talk about politics, but just to share stories of how reconciliation takes place even in other parts of the world among struggling communities. So just to share those stories, we cannot go to Morung, we cannot go to Tunsan, they'll never allow us. So we called few leaders to Dibrugarh, second time to Sibsagar, and the third time to Jorhat. And when we were coming back from Jorhat, the convention in Dimapur was taking place, the peace convention organized by Sisahoho, and we came and participated there, and from there the Forum for Naga Reconciliation was formed. So after Forum for Naga Reconciliation was formed, NPMHR, along with other civil society organizations, from the day one till now, we have given all our efforts, whatever time, energy we can spend, we could share, we have given our efforts in the works of FNR. So this is basically to promote the human rights situation, perhaps, even if we're not competent, but that is the story still today. To talk about today and tomorrow, I will leave that to the open discussion. But I just want to end on a footnote, saying that all these years of human rights movement, we have talked about human rights violations being committed on our people, by our own people, on others also. And we have kept silent on many of the human rights issues that have been committed by our own people in the name of freedom, in the name of nationalism, call it any names, self-determination. But the situation is changing, the world is changing, Nagas also must change along with time. And in the coming days, questions of human rights has to be addressed within our own perspective. And we cannot point fingers at others anymore. And so perhaps the younger generation will be much more competent in taking up these issues. People like us who have been just activists without knowledge of even what is Human Rights Declaration or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that contains the articles, we just went along with these issues because of our survival and because the society just cannot remain mute spectators. But now the younger generation are much more competent. You have everything at the click of a finger, and we hope the situation of human rights for today will be adequately addressed in this right perspective. And I once again end by saying that we also all share the dreams that Madam Hibo have shared. And with that, I conclude my presentation.